Good evening and welcome to the November Steering Committee meeting. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes, and I'd like to call on Vice Chairman Jeff Phillips.
Mr. Chairman, I move that they be approved as mailed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item of business, we need to announce 3 vacancies on the Agricultural Advisory Board. Those are Commissioner Steve Sandlin. He went to his first meeting, and so they decided they need to replace him. Also, a farm woman and a farmer. Actually, Commissioner Sandlin, if you remember, was filling the non-expired commissioner term of, I believe, Ron Williams, and so that was set to expire in December. So we need to announce that. Secondly, we need to announce 2 vacancies on the Correctional Work Center Board, Thomas Hartley and Grant Kelly. And now we need to fill an alternate vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals to fill the unexpired alternate term of Mr. Joe Crowell. I believe we've received 1 application, two applications for that. Mr. Jared Barrett and Mr. Michael Rather. I believe you have those applications in front of you. Again, as typical procedure, we'd like to ask those applicants, if they're here, to speak to the committee. Mr. Barrett, I see you in alphabetical order. Would you like to go first?
I'll be happy to. My name is Jared Barrett, and been living here about 8 years, and like to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I feel like I got a good pulse on what's going on in Richland County, and feel like I can be a good service on that committee. So I appreciate you, fellas. Thank you.
And Mr. Rather.
I'm here. I'm Michael Rather. I know some of you, and I'm part of generations of Rathers in Rutherford County, and there's actually a couple hundred of us roaming around the county, which is a good thing sometimes and a bad thing if you're in the family. I have currently served as Vice President of a construction company here, the managing broker of the real estate company. Prior to that, I managed multiple branches for Cumberland Title, and then became a division president for Stewart Title, which is based out of Houston, and I had folks and entities all over the state of Tennessee. My former church that I went to for 40 years, I was an ordained deacon there. I'm was a co-founder and board of directors for First Step Outreach Ministries here in town. I'm current president and founder of New Life Challenge, which are ministries that help men and women get beyond some life-controlling issues. I'm the current chair of the Grievance Committee for the Realtors Association, member of the Education Committee for the Realtors Association. Next year I'll be serving for the Professional Standards Committee for the Realtors Association, in addition to the chair of the Education Committee. And I'm also currently a board director for the Rutherford County Home Builders Association. Probably my greatest leadership role is being the husband of my wife for 14 years and the dad of my 3 kids. My point to all that is I'm not bragging about anything because there's really nothing to boast about. I've been honored to be in leadership positions, and I serve in those positions because I care about the industry I work in. I care about the church I go to. I care about the community, and I just want to serve on this board because I care about this county. I've been here my whole life. And raising the kids that I have, I just want to make a difference in the county for their benefit and everyone else's. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rather. Any questions for either one of the applicants or a motion, either one?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we nominate both applicants and vote for one.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Becky.
Commissioner Black.
Mr. Michael Rather.
Commissioner Farley.
Rather.
Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Rather.
Commissioner Jordan.
Mr. Rather.
Commissioner Phillips.
Rather.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Mr. Rather.
Commissioner Foggen.
Rather. Thank both of you for being here and appreciate your willingness to serve. Next week, and also the November commission meeting, I don't have that date, the 18th, would be a good time to show up for that, that's when it'll be approved by the full commission. And also, our next item is the county coroner position. We have one application for that, Mr. Mike Nunley. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Nunley.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And next, the anti-litter resolution. Mayor, Jeremy, Mr. Willis, if y'all would like to all join us, or if we need to. If you don't want to, you can wait.
We still have some changes from what we received in the email.
Okay. I failed to welcome all parties to the table last time, so I'm going to leave anybody in. Mr. Whitworth, I'm sorry. I mean, if you have anything you want to add, I asked Mr. Whitworth from Farm Bureau if he wanted to come or had anything. If you want to add anything. So, Jeremy, you want to walk us through any changes, anything that you want to show us?
The version that you guys have right in front of you is a little bit different than the one that was sent out Friday. Mr. Willis and I kind of revisited a few things, thought there was some kind of confusing language that we wanted to clean up, so there isn't really any policy changes. It's just more of a, we clarified the written notice because the publisher, which is the individual who publishes or causes the materials to be delivered. As opposed to using the term depositor, we thought there could be some confusion as far as that goes. This resolution is a little bit different than the one we had been kind of throwing around for a while, in that it's a little bit more content neutral, and we've also kind of made some concessions in a way to help the newspaper industry be able to function under the anti-litter resolution. We've added definitions for unsolicited and solicited. You guys would notice that solicited has a kind of dual-pronged definition in that it's either the citizen has requested it or the citizen has not objected to it. So that way, I believe that Murfreesboro Post is with similar type of delivered without there being a written request. But as long as people want to keep getting that, we don't want to interfere with that. So that's kind of the definition there. Solicited and unsolicited is the counter to that. It's after the written request has been sent to the publisher. I believe the mayor had suggested in section 7 that we're going to add one word that from no person shall drive or move any truck or other vehicle within the county unless such vehicle so constructed, covered or loaded. So we're going to add covered there as of about 10 minutes ago.
So backing up under unsolicited.
Yes, sir.
Any materials delivered to a citizen after the citizen has requested in writing for the publisher to no longer deliver material for the materials citizen. So there has to be a request involved in order for this definition of unsolicited to be a factor.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Because one of the big, well, I don't know if it's a misconception or not. I think what folks are interpreting that if they didn't want this and it's being thrown in their driveway or their yard or whatever, is unsolicited. They didn't ask for it, they didn't want it, they don't want it, but in this definition, there has to be a request in writing.
Yes, sir.
For this to be unsolicited.
Yes, sir, and we did that. I found a United States Supreme Court case that was talking a little bit about what kind of rights you as a citizen have to stop unwanted and undesired information coming in. And if the citizen opts out, it's legal. However, we can't, as Rutherford County, the government body, we cannot interfere with that relationship. So in this instance, what we're doing is we're putting the onus on the citizen, and if the citizen doesn't want the Post or the Rutherford AM or whatever it is that's being delivered, they send it to the publisher. Now we'll get to this here in a little bit, but there's a 20-day window that we have created to allow for the publisher to be able to put in some systems to stop the deliveries. But it'll take a little time, and I think think that's fairly reasonable.
So the Supreme Court basically is requiring the resident to go through due process and request that they don't want it?
It was in a little different context. It had to do with undesired mail. And the reality is that we as a government entity can't really regulate speech. With that being the case, what we're truly doing is regulating litter here. But there is a little bit of an overlap, as we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is, if the citizen doesn't want it, it then becomes litter, as opposed to, and the citizen has to take some affirmative steps.
Right.
Back to section 7, where is the word covered? Do you insert again?
We're going to insert that, if y'all want to, right after constructed, which is that third sentence, is so constructed, comma, covered or loaded.
So does it have to be covered?
It doesn't have to be covered, but I mean, you might have a truck that's built or constructed in such a way that you don't need another covering on it. In other words, you see what I'm saying? So
Okay.
it gives us enough flexibility to be sure if it's not constructed or loaded properly, then it must be covered.
Well, I think anywhere over Barton, there's some of these trucks have to be covered, don't they?
These big trucks,
Commercial.
commercial trucks have to be covered. We're talking about a farm truck or your pickup truck.
What about, I know in the Florence area, there's some businesses that pick up people's trash, and they just drive a little rickety old truck.
Those trucks have to be covered.
Those have to be covered.
Or constructed or loaded properly. There's no litter coming out of them.
You guys want to keep going?
Let me ask a quick question while I got on. I know the codes director. I'd asked that the codes director have input on this. What was his input?
We sat down and talked. We walked through this entire thing. I feel like this version he's very comfortable with. There is a provision in here that we have extended the application of the 10-day notice period for anybody that owns property. It's even if it's occupied or abandoned, there's a 10-day. It's 10 days for each, and that was one of the things he was really wanting to kind of put that in there for both sides. So that Mr. Jones was pretty okay with everything else that was in here. I think that was the one point of contention that he had. The construction site litter and erosion, litter in lakes and fountains, and the throwing or distributing handbills in public places have all remained unchanged. Section 11 has been changed from the version we had at the last meeting. We've talked about this a couple different times. How in the world would somebody know if it's uninhabited or vacant? And so what we've done now is we've clarified that if someone's leaving town and they don't want stuff to be put at their house, they can send a letter that says, I'm not going to be here for 30 days. Please don't deliver stuff to my house. That way, now we know that the depositor or the publisher has an idea that they're not there. And that way we don't have people guessing, is the house abandoned, is it vacant?
But in those situations where it is abandoned or vacant, I mean, it still applies there the same way.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I think that rolled right into 12, maybe what, and I'll go ahead if you've got some more stuff on that one on 11.
That's all I've got for 11. Section 12 is, again, it's important to remember that unsolicited in this, for the purposes of this document, means that there's been a written request, and that's for people who are publishing. This is not for somebody who throws a beer can in your yard or whatever. This has to do with people who are distributing materials that are handbills, newspapers, that kind of stuff.
Would this not come in, well, it might be, I don't know, it might be another section right here. Like I think what Farm Bureau was talking about or had a question about at one point on some of their members and stuff was the farmers and pulling down a lane or pulling out somewhere and dumping trash bags out of whatever, or sweeping the bed of a truck out of trash and garbage, you know, whatever. Does that go in that section right there, or is it?
No, sir, I believe that would be, throughout this section, 11, 12, and 13, we're using the term material or materials, and it has a very limited, it's to non-commercial handbills, commercial handbills, newspapers.
Okay. Okay.
Litter in its other forms, empty Coke bottles,
Right.
paper, whatever, that type of stuff is governed by other sections, like I can't find it right now, but it's prohibited for folks to throw that kind of stuff in your yard.
And going back with Farm Bureau, I know there's been some cases out in the rural areas that someone may go out and dump roofing materials on a farmer's farm and them not even know it, or any other debris.
Yeah.
You know, is that farmer going to be held responsible, even though that they didn't actually cause the debris to be there?
Yes, sir, in theory, but the reality is, in those situations, what we've done is there's a 10-day notice period. So if you have something in your yard, you as a private homeowner or a farmer, you do not have a responsibility. You have not violated this resolution unless you have gotten a notice and 10 days pass and you still haven't cleaned it up. So if Mr. Jones comes over and says, Mr. Smith, I understand that you have a couch on your back 20. Well, they have 10 days to clean it up, and if they clean it up, there's no violation of this resolution.
What we've had before is like what you were talking about, either shingles or tires or whatever, that they just, like say, pull down a lane that goes into whatever field, and that's maybe the convenience centers were closed or whatever the case may be. Maybe they're just too lazy to go to the convenience center and dump it, but that's where they wanted to dump it, and they dumped it right there. That's what we've had some issues with in the rural districts. I know Gary has, I have, some of the others have had that problem, and that's what we didn't want the farmer, property owner, however you want to say it, not to be burdened with that expense of if they notified, hey, I didn't know I had a truckload of shingles out here on, you know, can they call the county and come and pick them up? I mean, you know, get them from the
shingles with no identification in there, it would be hard to determine who actually did that. But if it's other just trash and garbage, we'll do the same as we do on the other right-of-ways. We will search to see if there's a name identifying who did that, then we will hold them accountable. Now, certain material, like you're saying, we're in an area that I don't know quite what to do with it. But as Jeremy said, you do have the 10-day notice, and if the farmer didn't do it, we would make every effort somehow to assist them in cleaning that up. If they just dumped it on a lane or something. In many cases, they won't be able to get access to the property because it'll be fenced or what have you, but...
That's the only thing I've had any comments about is, I hope you're using common sense about putting an anti-litter ordinance in effect, and I think we are, but, you know, are we ever going to have an ordinance or something that's going to be ironclad tight? No, it's not, you know, but, and I think some of the rural people in the rural districts have that situation from time to time. Not all the time, because those farmers and property owners want to keep their property looking good. They don't want people dumping on them and all that stuff, and they do different things to keep that from happening. Whether it's putting a gate up or closing a gap or putting a fence over it or something, you know, not allowing folks to come do it, but people still do that from time to time.
And as I said before, what I don't want to happen, I don't want the farmer to be held responsible when the person didn't cause it, but there is a situation like I've got on Kingwood Lane. The homeowner is causing every bit of it, and it's the biggest mess I've ever seen anywhere around. But he should be held responsible for taking care of that because he's caused it, where the farmer hadn't caused it, per se. And I think that may be a deal where the codes director or whoever it would be policing this would have to use some common sense and have some leeway where to be able to make that decision.
that's exactly what will have to happen. Of course, as he says, you have to give them a 10-day notice, but we probably wouldn't even give the notice until we investigate and have
Right.
discussion with the farmer. And, you know, if he didn't do it, then we wouldn't even give them the notice. But anyway, yes,
Right.
you do have to use some judgment here,
Yeah.
and we will.
Right.
Wouldn't we clean it up?
We would, if it
The
was.
farmer was blameless?
If he was blameless, we would do our best to use our litter crew
Okay.
with our inmates and go out there and find a way to clean that up.
Okay.
These people are not gonna get too far off the road doing this, so it'd just be usually a short distance, and we could manage to get there.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Whitworth is, I think he'd like to have a
Absolutely.
question.
My concern is not with this group of gentlemen and ladies in here, but what's gonna happen 25 years from now if this is put into place. Somebody might not use common sense. I have no problem with what Mr. Burgess would do,
Right.
as Kim, or any of the rest of you, but what happens 25 years from now if this code goes in and it says that I can be held accountable for what, Mr. Burgess throws on my property, or anybody unknown to me throws on my property back maybe, they might not use common sense in 25 or 30 years, if it's in law.
The other side of that, though, Mr. Whitworth, is that if it's your property, are you just going to allow it to sit there and become a dump? But usually, sometimes when somebody does something like that and then others see it, then before you know it, the next week or the next month, somebody else is coming in there dumping stuff. The litter law is supposedly going to stop all of that. We know that it won't 100%. And I don't know what else to do other than to say that it's our intent to use free labor when it comes to the workhouse to come out there and clean those things up. It doesn't mean that there won't be some issues from time to time, but there's a real need, and there are thousands of citizens who are demanding that we do something here.
That's all understood, and I agree 100%, because we have some property that backs up to a road that has, what, a mile or so. Well, it keeps the hole in the ground covered. There's a mile or so that there's no houses. We have probably a trailer load full of garbage that is on the side of the road at time to time.
It's really deep, a
It's
long way
down off the road.
So they've just thrown it off and it rolls off in there.
And we would love to, and
I don't know how we clean it up.
I'll get with whoever need to the next day or two and have you come see it. But it's not in an area, and there's other old areas like that. It's not in an area. I don't travel that road every day. I go through occasionally, but I don't. It may be there a week or 10 days before I'd ever know it was there. But there's no access to get onto my property. It's on the right of way.
In legal terms, Jeremy, is there any way we can put in here that if on whatever legal language, I'm no attorney, but if due to the investigation it's determined that the landowner is not responsible?
I think it's already in there, isn't it? I mean,
Is it?
well, we're talking about on the right of way right there, and that takes
I'm talking about-
that takes a landowner out. I mean,
Right.
But if you throw it on the right of way and it rolls down onto their property, I
Well-
think is what there's.
Yeah, that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
It's steep enough that it gets off the right of way onto them.
I mean, it's possible, it would be possible to do something like that. But then, I mean, again, that's kind of a policy call for you guys to do it. If you tell me to, I can draft it. I think the reality is that once we start creating all these kind of little outs, then this thing gets a lot harder to enforce. And it's up for you guys to decide, do you want to make people take care of their property within 10 days, even if they're not at fault, or do you want to provide some kind of alternate resolution for that? I mean, do you guys want to say, hey, if you didn't do it, we won't hold you responsible, even if you let it pile up? I mean, that's a policy decision, and I can't help you all with that, but I could draft it if you want me to. It won't be impossible.
I would feel much more comfortable because of what Mr. Whitworth just said. 25 years from now, if something was in writing that involving the landowner that is not at fault and perhaps cannot clean it up. That's also possible. I'd feel better if there was something in writing. And also, just to accent something else he said, I guess perhaps we all know this, but if you have some trash and it's thrown out, you've got a pile of trash, if you don't do something reasonably quick, you're going to insure yourself of some more trash, and then more, and then more. And pretty soon people think it's the actual dump. And that's happened in various places in Rutherford County before. But anyway, you asked, would we feel more comfortable? I would, if we had something in writing, yes.
If someone is responsible for it, I want them to be held accountable. I mean, and I think any of us would want that. But if I'm not responsible for something, I don't want to be held accountable for somebody else's actions. You know,
the enforcement will take a hit. I mean, it's just a natural element of that. If we have created a out for people who are not at fault, then then there is no longer a requirement in this resolution for people to maintain their property. Now, I understand, for instance, in the situation you were talking about out on that road, you believe that the property owner is responsible for creating his or her own mess.
Due to the investigation that the code department has done, it is.
Yes, sir.
It's their fault.
But at the same time, all of a sudden, we have gone into this gray area where we're having to determine whether or not somebody's responsible.
I don't think so. I don't
well, that's
so.
fine.
I mean, you know, you always have to put this terminology in there, common sense, you know, into everything. I mean, Bart's job right now is if there's a bag of trash on the side of the road or wherever it's at, you know, he actually looks in and see if he can find a name or something. He's going to attach that to you, and he's going to be giving you a call. You're going to get a citation in court or a warning or whatever. You know, if it happens again, then you're going to get another citation or a warning, whatever. But if it's like on his piece of property or mine or whatever, that a load of shingles is dumped out there, and I'm not a roofer, you know, I hadn't put a roof on, I hadn't done any of this, you know, and another load of shingles comes out there, you know, people are finding these spots or where they're, and this has happened a lot when I say roofing, is because, you know, different storms, we have a lot of roofs changed. Well, they just soon, hey, this looks like a good spot, and here it's dumped, you know, and some of these that maybe are not local folks that come in and do roofing, and they think that's where it needs to belong. It's out of their mind, out of sight kind of thing, but it's on his property or mine. That's what we're talking about.
Yes,
and garbage too, I'm saying that. But if this continues to be a problem over on his property or mine or whoever's it is, then maybe I need a cable across there, not letting them back in this lane or whatever. On the side of the road, I don't know what we're going to do by that. I mean, that's just a different thing. But it's, you know, you can kind of see that that's down the right of way, and that's just where folks, you know, it's a little hot spot. Might have to put up a sign, no dumping or something. I don't know. You know, it might deter some folks. But if they want to dump there, they're going to dump there, and that's where we have to prosecute those who are not abiding by the laws, and the ones that are, then that's ones we're trying to write this for.
Well, to me, it would be no different than like in law enforcement. If someone commits a misdemeanor, there's got to be probable cause before they can be cited for that misdemeanor.
Yes, sir.
You know, so if there's no probable cause, that person is not going to be charged. And it would be no different than being in just in a litter, someone dumping stuff, and if that person doesn't have, there's not, in the investigation, it's found that they didn't do anything, you know, there's nothing there to charge them with.
I don't think it's quite the same because it's still litter or garbage on their property. At some point in time, you're not going to find, it's not going to go over to somebody else's property where you can charge them. At some point in time, that landowner is going to have to take responsibility and clean their property. So I want us to be careful not to get too far away from the teeth of what this is intended to do. I understand I want to protect the innocent landowners that get littered on, which is what we're trying to do to begin with. But we're getting away from the whole reason this document's 7 pages long. there's going to be things in here that are going to have to be tweaked along the way. And I don't know when or where it is, but I have to kind of agree with Jeremy a little bit that if we start putting different things in here, that eventually, well, I may put trash on my property, but I'm going to tell you I didn't. And then you're going to have to send somebody out to pick it up. I don't know where, there's not an end there.
Well, it might work one time, but if I'm the enforcement guy or the inspector, I mean, it's, like I say, it might work one time, but.
Also, I think you open the door for if you did have the large property owner with that option, then small property owners, that's not my trash, I don't have to pick it up. And then the trash going blowing everywhere. And you're talking about maybe residential subdivisions. Is my concern. If you have one gray area, then any property owner could say, well, that's not my trash. And we'd be investigating everything.
To me, really and truly, we got bigger fish to fry in this county with problems like I've got out there off Kingwood Lane. That's the what I'm getting at. When you got people out here deliberately piling stuff up on their own property and snubbing their nose at the court system over here, and the codes director don't have the teeth to be able to take care of those people. To me, we got bigger fish to fry on that.
In that situation, how would codes prove that it's theirs? They could just say, like the chairman said, they could just say, well, that's not my trash.
Over a period of time, there's been an investigation going on, and it just keeps, they've got pictures after pictures after pictures. It's his own, a lot of it's his own house that's falling down.
The thing to keep in mind is that if we're going to cite folks, we're going to have to go over here to the General Sessions Court and prove that they did it.
Right.
So if we don't have any eyewitness accounts that they put it on their trash, they put it there themselves, then the defense that it's not my trash is almost bulletproof. I mean, if it's not their fault, even if they let it accumulate and it's not their fault, then we don't really have a citation for that. We'd have to catch them in the act.
Jeremy, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to read this and you tell me if we just... The sentence in section 22 that starts right now says, when garbage, litter, refuge, or rubbish is on open and vacant land. That's on section 22 on the next page.
What line are you on there, Mayor?
Starts line number 4.
Okay.
That sentence that says, when garbage, litter, refuge, or rubbish is on open or vacant. Now, this is some language, and I don't know if this is enforceable or not. Instead of that, this would read, when it has been reasonably determined by the enforcement official that the property owner has placed garbage, litter, refuge, or rubbish on open and or vacant or occupied property, Rutherford County shall give the owner notice as per section 19. Does that weaken what we're trying to say, or is it
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if it's, I don't know what
Right.
if we've hindered what we're trying to accomplish.
That goes back to what would a reasonable person consider.
But I mean, like I say,
it does a couple of things too. Of the inspector is not just getting a complaint, sending a notice out and saying, hey,
he's got to make some effort to determine if really they
tires or
violated.
whatever out here on your property, and you've got to get taken care of within 10 days. They're going to have to call and notify them or something. And have
He's got to investigate. He's got to do some investigating. Right. He's got to discuss it with the owner, and he's got to review this.
I like that better.
I do too.
It's not just sending a letter out.
But I don't.
You got to get it done.
That's an option. We could also put "or" at the end of this and say, "or the property owner has allowed the litter to accumulate." But I'm just throwing that out there. You guys tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it.
I think what the mayor just spoke of, I think will take care of the concerns that I've got, and I think it will take care of the concerns that the Farm Bureau's got. And I can't speak for Mr. Sandlin.
Well, that's what I was just saying. I think that
And I think it will give the county the teeth it needs on people that are violating this ordinance.
But it puts responsibility on the enforcement official to
Right.
to do some real due
Do some
diligence.
investigation.
Right.
Yeah.
Read it again.
Well, it starts in that second paragraph there, second sentence in that, when it has been reasonably determined by the enforcement official that the property owner has placed garbage, litter, refuge, or rubbish on open and/or vacant or occupied property, then the rest of that's the same.
What about and/or allows it to happen?
Oh.
I may not be doing it, but I might be like.
Has placed or allowed
Yeah.
a placement of.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Or allowed placement
Well, sometimes where they say fill dirt only, a lot of times they don't put fill dirt in there.
of garbage, litter.
They put
Okay, yeah.
whatever else, yeah.
Whatever.
They fill in it with, yeah, that's true.
If I've got a place that's been done and I know it's happening and I'm not doing anything about it, then I'm partially at fault.
Right.
And you should be held responsible.
I should be held responsible for
Right.
that. I have no problem with that.
Right.
Okay.
Next.
All right, I think we're gonna flip back.
That's just one change.
We'll flip back here to 13. All right, and this is what Mr. Willis has in, I mean, it's in section 13, I'm sorry.
We didn't have to have the newspaper, does it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we kind of skipped on
Glad you
that.
came down.
Section 13, what's happened here is, again, we're using the unsolicited or solicited materials. Materials incorporates newspapers, commercial handbills, non-commercial handbills, so it's a content neutral. What'll happen in this situation is that a written notice will be sent to the publisher. If somebody wants to opt out of receiving a commercial handbill or a newspaper, they'll send a written notice to the publisher that says, I don't want you guys to deliver this to me anymore. The publisher will then have 20 days to stop. Then that written request will be good for 5 years. The 5-year limitation based on folks moving around, 5 years, or if the person moves. That way, if somebody moves or they decide that they want something, they can start getting it in 5 years. And if they want to opt out again, they can opt out again.
So for 20 days, if, say, I wanted mine stopped, and I want it stopped on today's date, the newspaper will still have 20 days to continue to pile up, even though I didn't want it.
Yes, sir.
And is that
I think
due to,
it's due to allow them to have some time to make changes in their distributing. Mr. Willis can speak to this better than I can, but I'm under the impression that there's 50, 60,000 plus. What's the distribution?
Approximately 52 or so thousand pieces of free papers go out to various places. So, and that's once a week typically. So if you call us on that Thursday and say, I don't want this anymore, for us to get it in our system and then get it to the people who are delivering, and those people tell the actual route drivers, it takes us 10, 15, 20 days to make sure that works. And if we get another delivery, we're sorry, we weren't trying to upset the property owner, but we don't want to have a citation issue when we're trying to do it as quick as we can. So it's just an option that a citation wouldn't issue that we'd be responsible for, because we're trying to comply in good faith.
kind of like trying to stop a train, you're gonna have about 1,000 foot there to stop that
Yeah,
train.
a little bit distance just to get it right. And this is what we deliver. You know, it's on the package here. It tells you
It's got the contact information.
contact information as to who it is, and numbers and emails, and we just simply need to know. And we do a pretty good job, but we do 50,000 pieces, and you know, there's going to be a mistake made unintentionally along the way. And it's also contained in the newspaper too somewhere. So
It's kind of like the email system has gotten, if you get unsolicited
Jeff just
emails,
wants
there's
free
always
paper.
an out down at the bottom. It's like this budget, just keep from getting any more of these things in the future.
And it's sort of like the do not call registry.
That don't work either.
It does for those who really comply with it, but, you know, it cuts down on my phone calls. Not everybody complies. But
Do y'all require a letter or just a phone call?
well, the problem we want to make sure is we want to have a letter so that we can actually document the file and the owner can document their file.
Is an email considered a letter?
Yes. I mean, anything in writing that they can say, I sent this on Wednesday 6 months ago. We look at our file.
All they gotta do is say stop. Send.
And that way, when we get into arguments about whether we got it or not, we have some written record. It's going to, I think, help minimize the confusion.
The 16 was, we had talked about this a little bit, but litter on occupied private property, it's against the resolution for folks to throw stuff on private property. So if if folks are caught throwing things on a property, that takes care of this. Then penalties. Now this is something that's been changed. Here at the end, it says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, neither a publisher nor depositor shall be liable for violating sections 11, 12, or 13 if such publisher or depositor can demonstrate by preponderance of the evidence that written procedures were established and operating at the time to reasonably comply with said provisions and that the subsequent distribution is the result of an isolated or random error. With the large amount of newspapers and other handbills and things that are distributed, Mr. Wills suggested that if it's an isolated random error, it's singular in nature, that it might be a good idea to opt that out, but that's a policy decision for y'all to make. This was what we kind of agreed to, but obviously my agreement is non-binding. That's what I incorporated in. I thought it was a decent idea, but that's for you guys to decide.
If I accidentally throw my banana peel out the window, I'll be okay.
This is limited to material or materials. So material or materials is newspapers, commercial handbills, and the like. So it's certainly not a banana peel.
And that's kind of where I was heading a while ago. I mean, to me, it would be no different than someone accidentally throw something on my property. I shouldn't be held liable. You know.
But isn't this letting them out though? I mean, we set it up here in 13, but then you're giving them out here in 21.
Yes, sir, that is true, and that's why I'm presenting it to you guys as a change. It is certainly an out. It's indisputably an out.
But it's only an isolated case. If they hire a new delivery person, and that person makes a mistake and gets in a hurry and throws out one extra paper on that
There's
route.
a new delivery person every week. I mean, I don't.
I think our error rate's very.
I don't mean it
strong.
in a bad way. I'm just saying I don't agree with the out. I mean, because they go through quite a few deliveries.
Well, the difficulty for our side on this thing is that on any given month, we may make a mistake along the way, and to be brought into court every time somebody says, well, this is the second time in the last 6 months I've gotten this, and the citation issues, it becomes very expensive to come down, and we have good policies. Maybe other people don't. I think this encourages people to adopt a policy and procedure that is going to demonstrate and help improve and lower the mistakes. And if we come into court and then the judge is there and we can say, Judge, look at what we do each month, that at least gives me an argument that this time maybe we ought not to be held liable. If it's the next week when we're back at the same guy's address, the judge may not be quite as sympathetic to me in that respect.
I understand, but you may have the same delivery. 100,000 different scenarios. I'm not agreeing with that part. I mean, I know where you're going with it, and I could probably argue that side a little bit for you, but I don't see that out there. Change delivers and one's thrown out there, probably not an issue, but it's probably the second one that the codes department's going to get a call, or the third one, hey, I thought we cut this thing off. You know, they're delivering them again. We don't want them.
I think what you're going to find is it will become an issue for one of you because you have one constituent who is just adamant about nothing being in their driveway, and they called yesterday and it's back, the next day.
That's right.
And you're going to respond to that, and hopefully it's a phone call to my publisher by the codes guy, and we get that straightened out and it's all done. But I've seen the reaction sometimes of certain code people who say, I've got the power and I'm going to use it, and it becomes a significant problem because every time I miss something, whether it's once a year or 3 times a year, I get hauled in to explain, and that's a lot of time and a lot of money over what's really is a very, very minor good faith effort to comply that we just made a mistake. So I would respectfully ask you to leave that in there, and if it becomes a problem, we can always amend it down the road if you really become something you can't live with.
I'm going to say we take it out because that's one of the reasons why we're writing this ordinance. That was the first thing he hit the block on it in the situation. I think we've come a long way from saying no papers to, doing what is right and fair in the business sector and welcoming you here and wanting you here and doing business here, and we all want you, Some people don't want it thrown out in their yard on the free ones. If they order it or pay for it, that's fine. Then some people do. Some people do want it too. A lot of people do want it.
Sure. I think the majority want it.
Yeah. So, but I think this, I think 21, in my opinion, that knocks it out for me. I ain't gonna speak for everybody else, but it just, we've got it over here, but then you put those 3 sections back in here, then, well, there goes the teeth. Don't have no teeth no more.
Well, that's why we put the isolated or random here, as opposed to if we just show you we've got a policy, then we're off scot-free. We don't care about enforcing it. So I understand what you're saying. I respectfully ask you to consider it and put it in there and let us demonstrate.
My question, Mayor, that in section 21 there, it talks about the offender may make payment to the county mayor's office in the amount of the civil fine prior to the court date. Is that something that they can do at General Sessions Court, or they add something to your office again?
Well, we don't want to go over there and experience court costs, et cetera, and go through that process for a $50 fine.
So
we'd rather just collect it.
That's okay with you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's also part of the statute itself.
Okay.
And again, this isn't that, we're saying right now the mayor's office, but in the building codes department, going to be enforcing this?
Yeah, but we're just saying the fine would be paid over here, or we'll direct them upstairs to finance, but we'll make.
Oh, okay.
It can be assigned, it just has to start off this way.
Okay.
Okay.
We've talked about 22 a good bit. 23, 24 has all stayed the same. Any proceeds from fines, the reward, that's part of the Tennessee statute itself. So none of this other stuff changed. We've kind of addressed the ones that have changed. So.
Any other thoughts, discussion, motion?
I want to revisit the language, the proposed change in the language to what we just talked about earlier, related to maybe larger pieces of property dumping. Could you kind of read through that? What's proposed?
Yes, sir.
So that maybe I can absorb it.
I think what we have here is on section 22. It's the next page, 4th line down. We have changed the sentence that begins when it has been reasonably determined by investigating official that the property owner has placed or allowed placement of garbage, litter, refuse, or rubbish is on open and or vacant or occupied property. Then it's a violation. You get 10 days to clean it up, and then it's a violation. I may play around with that wording a little bit, but I'll certainly, if that's going to, that voted to be included, I'll certainly keep consistent with the spirit. I'd like to think about that a little bit.
What does that do to get the property cleaned up?
Well, I don't think it really does anything at this point, because at some point, I mean, I think there's a limit to what we can use. We're talking about the folks that, the workhouse guys. Well, there's a limitation to how we can use them. We can't use them for private benefit. So if we can clean up the right-of-ways and we can clean up that stuff, but we can't go into people's property because it's actually a crime to do that. So if we find out that it's not their stuff, they didn't put it out, they didn't put it there, then I don't really know what we have as far as make them clean it up.
I'm not sure, Jeremy, I understood what you just said.
I'm sorry.
The question was, will the property owner still be responsible to clean that up, or can they just leave it there forever?
If it's been found with the language that we have right now, the addition, if they have been found that they did not either place it themselves or they allowed it to be placed there, we do not have any authority under this resolution to make them clean it up or to fine them if they do not clean it up.
Or to fine them?
We don't have any, there's no authority if they did not place it there or allow it to be placed.
So it could just go on?
Yes, sir.
Could that happen in my yard? I mean, there's beer cans, garbage, and I'm saying I'm not doing it, somebody else is doing it. So you couldn't enforce it in my yard either?
Not with the way we currently have it.
Not with this language?
Not with this language.
Does that render this, whatever it is, 7-page, 8-page piece of document pretty much useless?
Well, I don't know if I'd go necessarily that far. It certainly removes the holding folks responsible for allowing garbage or litter to accumulate on their property, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we've talked about. They still can't throw it out their window. They can't do that kind of stuff, and folks cannot throw it onto the thing. But we don't have any. I mean, again, it's kind of a policy decision. I can't really decide. But it is true that if they're not responsible for the placement of, or they did not allow it to accumulate, that I don't think that we have anything under this resolution to make them do anything about it. So
there could be some dump sites that would just stay there?
I think it's theoretically possible. Now, I don't know the entire, I don't know if it becomes to a certain level, then it becomes a dump and that's illegal. I don't know those kind of things. But,
well, there's got to be a way where we can enforce this ordinance and still protect someone that has not caused someone to dump something on their property, and on the larger lots, on larger acreage.
I understand the situation. It would be frustrating to me if I had 68 acres and on the back 10 something got dumped and I didn't, I haven't been back there for 2 weeks. I mean, at the same time, there is in the original version of it this evening, there was a 10-day notice. Now, is that going to be satisfactory in every situation? Probably not. I mean, if some older folks are out there that can't physically clean up their property, exactly. I certainly understand that that's a hardship, and I unfortunately, legally speaking, I can't really start drafting something that says if you're 67 and older, right, you're out, right, and if it's 120 acres, you're out, and because then we've got a problem.
Well, you get discriminatory there.
Yes, sir.
That way.
Can I just say one thing? It's different between a beer can and a commode and a couch sofa, which is what picking up beer cans, we do that typically anyway, because you just get that stuff in your drive and everything. But back there on the back, we actually have had commodes down this long embankment and couches and television sets. I don't know why.
Right.
Well, because
But,
people
you
are too
know,
lazy to go to the convenience center.
I don't understand it.
That's more convenient than a convenience center.
What do you do with that? Right now, what do you do with it?
We haven't done
And
anything.
It's just there.
They don't try to let on right away. It's on a section of road that
So
nobody.
so you just leave it there?
Right. Now, the carpet that was in front of my daughter's house, we picked it up.
Okay.
I got a
Tires,
tractor.
you picked that
Well, they
up.
won't touch it, because I didn't want it where it had been.
I live on one of the most visible and highly traveled roads in Murfreesboro, okay? If somebody dumped a commode and a couch and whatever else on my front yard, and probably I've had enough folks hacked off at me where they might want to do that, and I just decided to leave that there, what would be the difference between me leaving it there and you leaving it there? I'm a property owner, you're a property owner, you own 1,000 times more acres than I do, but what would be the difference? And that's my whole point there. If you put something like this in there, all of a sudden you've got something that you can enforce. And then the litter law becomes, what does it become? And that's my concern, is that right now what we've tried to do is to hold property owners accountable for their property. And if we start saying, well, maybe we ought to exempt this and that and the other, then suddenly it's become kind of unacceptable. It may even be that the person like Commissioner Farley was talking about in his area would 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning dump the toilet out there just to hack his neighbors off. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from. And just wanted to leave it there. So it might even make a situation like that. And I know that's far-fetched, you guys. Don't get me wrong. I know that's far-fetched. But if you can't enforce it on one property owner, how can you enforce it on any property owner? And that's my point. I've got some serious concerns about that.
And it also goes back to, you have to have a complaint. And in your neighborhood, someone's gonna complain the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And in your property, if it's back where no one ever travels, no one's gonna complain about that. Now, if it's in the right of way, you know, that's where, I guess, we might could do something about it, but if it's back in your property, where no one's really gonna see it, you'll never get a complaint.
They're gonna complain now, they're on TV.
I don't know, you're probably right, Trey, and I probably
Well, and that, but
overstated that.
but in that case, we would need to take that language out.
But still, in that complaint, you know, that they could complain all they wanted to, but if I said I didn't dump it there, and I'm tired of picking it up and I'm not gonna pick it up anymore, could they enforce it, even if they had a complaint?
Well, I'm
could they
saying with
enforce
that added language, they couldn't. But if you took that out and didn't add it,
Right.
then you'd be responsible for picking up that commode.
Exactly.
In the previous language, the 10-day rule, how will that 10-day rule affect someone that owns a farmland?
Yes,
If they didn't do it?
in the original language, what would happen is there would probably be a complaint. Mr. Jones or whoever goes out there and investigates it, looks, sees, yeah, there's a commode and a couch in the yard. There's a notice that's issued to them that says, look, you have a couch and a commode in your yard, and you need to get rid of it. They have 10 days from receiving that to get it cleaned up. So if they clean it up within 10 days, there's no problem. There's no $50 fine. We don't charge them anything. But on the 11th day, it becomes a problem. And on the 11th day, the option is for the Rutherford County to say either that's $50 a day for a fine, or we're coming on the property, we're going to clean it up, and then we're going to send you the bill.
So someone could dump some stuff on a say a 50-acre farm, and they don't. It's not theirs. And if they give them the 10 days, they don't do it. We're at square one. Right?
Yes, sir. If they don't clean it up within the 10 days after they've received notice, then it's what is Rutherford County going to do? Are they going to fine them $50 a day, or are they going to go on there and clean it up and then send them a bill for it?
So they would have to be, the investigator or the inspector or whatever would have to do due diligence to be able to determine if there is someone to find.
What if we take this language out? If we leave it like he originally presented it, he doesn't have to do any due diligence.
He just finds them.
He just finds them. He either finds them or goes out there and makes the provisions to clean it up and charge them for it.
They have to find it. The issuing individual, they can't send out a notice if they haven't seen it.
Right.
Like, so that they'll have to see it. So there's due diligence as far as I've seen it, it's out there, and then it's the 10-day notice. There's no fining until the 11th day after the notice has been received, and that's the original. That was the original.
But within that 10 days, then they call and say, hey, this isn't my stuff. I didn't put it up there. I didn't put it out there. You know, here's my property. And in this situation, people come down the right of way here and dumped it off, you know, so we maybe can send, you know, the county out there to.
Yeah, but it rolled down the right of way onto their property. It's off the right of way now.
Well, they can roll it back up.
Well,
but they might can take care of it though. I mean, they might.
Well, they may choose to do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
If they don't choose to do it, we have to find them or clean it up for them.
Here's
And charge them.
I mean, I've got, and I know some of the other road commissioners have got this in their areas. There's problems out there. We've got to have a litter ordinance to be able to get those things cleaned up. I mean, there's some places out there that are a mess. And the people are causing it and won't do nothing about it. But I can also understand on the farmland, that side of it, but we've got to have some kind of ordinance to be able to enforce some of this stuff.
And you think what the mayor just read right there, then that knocks us out? That addition that we tried to put in there?
Yes, sir. I think it does, because with that, what we're doing is adding another prong there. We're not saying, is it there? Now we're saying, is it there, and did you put it there or allow it to be put there? And as we're talking about it, if it's at night, we don't have any eyewitnesses. We have a really difficult time proving that they put it there or they allowed it to be put there. You know, these folks aren't going to say, yeah, I put it there. Well, some of them will. Some of the honest ones will say, I put it there. But if the other folks who are dishonest, they're just going to say, I didn't put it there. And then we have no way of going in front of Judge Brandon over here and telling Judge, look, there's a stuff on the property and it's a problem. And then they'll say, I didn't put it there. And then he'll look at the law and it'll say, not a problem. Because we can't prove that they put it there.
So to keep our teeth, we can't put that in there, what you're saying?
I think it's...
We should.
Well, I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't. I think that it makes enforcement more difficult. Makes it a lot more difficult. I'm just trying to picture myself being over there and trying to talk Judge Brandon into issuing a $50 fine when we've got this out, that if you didn't put it there, you can't be held responsible for it, and then I don't have anybody to say that they...
So basically, we're putting the property owner in telling the judge that they didn't put it there, and hey, I'm not doing roofing. This ain't my roof stuff, and so they're going to have to prove it in court. Is what I'm saying.
Well, we have to prove it. We'll have to prove it.
Because they're innocent to
prove it. They can pay their fine, or they can take us on into court and
when we go into court,
let somebody else decide.
We have to prove that it happened.
Then we'll have to prove they're the ones that put it there.
That's gonna be hard to do. Probably more likely you're doing it at night. That's when they're throwing it out, more likely. Probably have to invest in some cameras.
At $50 per day or occurrence, we're going to have a hard time justifying the enforcement of this ordinance.
Because it's not going to pay for itself.
No. It may take us few years to recover the legal costs we've had in
Well,
preparing this document.
I hate to say it, let's back up and take it out. We'll go with it this way. We may have to revisit it and tweak it, but I'm gonna make a motion that we'll approve it as presented, not what the mayor had put on there. But taking out in section 21, the last paragraph, basically, or the last sentence, starting at notwithstanding. And I believe that's a whole sentence right there, about 4 or 5, 1. Starting it with notwithstanding, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences right there.
And that's with adding that covered word in section 7C?
Yes. All the other additions that we've said and done, not putting the mayor's comment there in 22, I believe it is, section 22, not doing that, even though I want to, but then again, we have to have teeth in actually enforcing this, so hopefully the enforcers will use common sense and work that out, and we'll not have those issues. I hate to say that, but without it being in writing. That's my motion.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah. What you just took out under section 21?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Yeah.
Notwithstanding from that on down, correct?
Yes.
Jeremy, is it possible for some language that's very similar to that be added to another section without weakening it?
I'm not really following.
I know. I'm just wondering if you could add some language like that or similar to that without weakening this ordinance to, if a property owner, a large property owner, could demonstrate by a preponderance of evidence that they didn't do it, like they posted notices about no trespassing, no dumping, and they've cleaned this stuff up before, and here it is again. I'm just wondering if that would that continue to weaken it?
Oh, we could do something like that, and that does, I mean, it weakens it a little bit, but that probably doesn't eliminate its usefulness in the same way that the proposal was, because I could probably put something to the effect that notwithstanding anything to the contrary, if the property owner is able to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that he or she has utilized all reasonable steps to maintain the premises in a manner free of litter, refuse, garbage, blah, 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 that will not constitute a violation of this resolution. Something to that effect. So what we do is, it's there, and then if we go into court and they said, well, you know, I've done everything in my power. I've worked 20-hour days trying to get this stuff cleaned up, and I can't do it. That could be an out, and that might be something that balances y'all's policy.
A preponderance of evidence to me would be if this property owner cleaned that property up, and then 6 months later there was garbage on there, and they had posted signs and no trespassing signs and all other kinds of things, and their property was still being violated. I think that would be a reasonable situation for them to look to us for some additional help. But I'm just asking, would that be reasonable for us to add that language into, what section were we talking about, Steve?
22.
22?
Yeah. Well, this was in 21, that I took that out.
Right, but if we could add something similar to that under this situation where they couldn't be fined, or maybe wouldn't be fined, and it might add something to what we were talking about earlier, that we would have to do some diligence on our part to get out there and help them clean that up. If they called us, and we'd try our best, especially if it's in a right of way, to get out there and clean that up.
But 21 is dealing with newspapers.
I know, but I'm just asking, could we give similar language to whatever other section that
Private property owners over in section 22.
Mm-hmm. And if we can't, that's fine. I just had to ask it.
I think that's one of those policy things. I could do that, and I don't think I don't think it eviscerates it in the same way that the earlier proposal was. I think that what you do is, in that situation, the phrasing is pretty important, because what we're saying is we found it there, we know it's there, we don't have to prove that they put it there, but then it's then we shift the burden to them once we're able to say, hey, we know that this was there, and then they're able to say, well, I've done everything I could. I have no trespassing signs. I didn't put it there. I've cleaned it up, and I keep cleaning it up. One of the things that there will be an issue, though, is what steps were taken within those 10 days and those type of things. But that's a possibility. Yes, sir.
I'm just, should we go ahead and move on this tonight, commissioners, or let Jeremy take another look at that or another run at that and see if he can give us an opinion that it might be doable, something like that. I think it may be at least somewhat of a compromise, you know, to that situation. I could be wrong, and that's the reason I brought it up. Is it something that when we were talking about taking that language out, would that language be useful to large property owners? Would it be if they had done a lot of work to try to stop that, posting signs and even cleaning it up, but then 6 months later or a year later, it's right back there again?
Or maybe somebody, you know, they may have their fencing up there, and somebody may be cutting their fence, and they're going back in there, and, you know, but I would feel a little more comfortable with something like, I mean, I understand that a while ago that would take the teeth out of it, but I would feel more comfortable with something like that.
I'm ready to move on it tonight the other way, and bring this back as an amendment if we wanted to, and we thought that was useful, or further discussion if we thought that might be useful, and give you the chance to look at it. I'm ready to do it either way.
The only thing I want to add to that, I don't have a problem with that. I guess we've kind of gone back and forth. If we're going to keep it tight, I think we need to keep it tight. And taking out the wording from 21 is keeping it tight. If we're going to add this, I don't have a problem adding it, but I think we need to leave the wording in 21 back in there. Because it's not the same thing, but it is the same thing. We're allowing farmers, property owners, a little bit of leeway in things that they didn't mean to get on their property. They didn't allow to happen on their property. Then maybe we should allow, I think it's only right for us to allow the same leeway to materials distributors to have an accident every now and then. And I think if we need to tighten that up, then let's stay tight. But if we're...
Well, what we're doing is, by doing that, well, what you just exactly said, we're actually being respectful to a property owner, and we're also being respectful to the public sector, I mean, the business side of it, and the business community as well. We're not being discriminatory.
I'm thinking we could come back, we could revisit this a month or 2 months or 3 months from now, Jeremy, if we wanted to, and add that particular language to it. But it might be best to go ahead and do that tonight.
I've got my motion on the floor. We got a second to do exactly that. But and I would prefer we go ahead and do it.
Okay.
But if we're going to make a little bit of a wish list, if we can look at what we had talked about, and the mayor, we thought we had the answer there. Do you kind of roll that around in your head a little bit? You know, if you're thinking about this in another section, a few months down the road, we might can put something in there and then amend it to put that in there. But right now, it's getting this and the whole package together.
I think what Jeff says accomplishes the same thing that I was trying to accomplish without weakening the enforcement process.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready to move on Steve's motion, and with the assumption that we'll revisit this to see if we can amend it without weakening it.
There may be a couple more tweaks down the road that we need to do too. So,
well, I want to vote for it. I'm for it, but I think that wording should stay, notwithstanding. As far as give a little leeway to a one-time error for the publishers.
Well, what I'd like to see somehow is where I can understand a one-time error be happening on a newspaper. And I'd like to see it actually put in both places. You know, and if to get the ball rolling, I can support this, the motion that you got. But at some point next month, I'd like to see us come back and have some language put in here for, because if we get going later on, sometimes we forget.
Let me ask you this, this may not be proper protocol, if it's not, we won't do it, but would it be proper to approve this document as it is, with the wording in 21? Just basically, as you brought it, with a few minor changes that with the wording and stuff. And then, at the commission meeting, offer an amendment that you could draft by that time?
Nah, give them some time to think about it.
We've had 5 months.
I mean, I think
we've got the Whitworths here, we've got Mr. Willis here.
You can craft this language
here.
at the end of section 22 now if you wanted, and be done with the whole thing.
I could do it in 5 minutes.
Well, if that being the case, I'd like to see us, you withdraw your motion, or if you don't, just vote this thing down, put this back in, and put the language back in that you talked about.
Add similar language.
Yes.
You're talking about a different motion, so I'm as they say, I'm against it. So,
well, Mr. Chairman,
I don't like this part in 21, plain and simple. So, I mean, if you want to add something back in 22,
well,
you can amend the motion here to put that in there, it'd be fine. But then you're bringing back out what this is on 21, which...
But still the same thing is, see, this here is basically the same thing as what we were talking about a while ago for a farmer. So really and truly, to be...
No. We'll agree to disagree.
I mean, that's fine. That won't be the first time.
Yeah, that's fine.
But to me, it's still the same. That we don't want a property owner to be charged something that they're not at fault at, and we don't want a newspaper, if they have one time, you know, they mess up, to be held for that one time after they done. So, and
a little different.
That's fine.
Mr. Chairman, can I do an amendment to the motion?
You sure can.
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't know if we had another amendment still sitting out there.
Well, we just got a motion right now.
Well, I'll amend it that we keep 21 intact.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Have any discussion on the amendment? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No. No.
2 noes.
All right.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make an amendment that in
Takes me out of
that same language go into section 22.
You've had 5 minutes. You have that drafted yet?
I'm working on it. I'll be done in 1 second.
That way it will protect the large landowners, not as much as we would like, but it would be a whole lot better than the other.
Second.
We want to hear the language before we vote
it. You got a motion and second on what now?
the amendment that Jeremy is in the process of crafting for us. Crafting and drafting.
Y'all are good.
This will save us a lot more time.
Right.
All right, this is my proposed language. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, a property owner shall not be held in violation of this resolution if, by preponderance of the evidence, the property owner can prove that the owner has taken all reasonable steps to maintain the property free of litter.
Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor?
I mean,
Aye. Any opposed?
no,
All right. Any other discussion on the motion?
Okay, now your motion is to approve as presented, but taking out the last sentence in section 21, starting with notwithstanding.
No.
But it's
We had an
amended.
amendment to add that back in.
Right.
Okay. And then,
And we had one word that was inserted.
Covered.
Covered in
Covered,
section
right.
7.
Well, Jeremy's not the
Yeah.
And then 21, on what I understand, 21, the notwithstanding language has
Still
been
there.
left in. And then we are adding to section 22, similar notwithstanding anything to the contrary language.
So the motion as amended is on the floor.
But do you need to vote down this
No,
motion?
the motion's been amended, but by 2 times.
The motion on the floor now is to actually approve it as presented
As amended.
and as amended.
yes.
So the notwithstanding would be in section 22 and in section
21.
But this
Yeah.
would change the way your motion reads.
I think so.
Actually, the motion would be, that was original motion as amended twice.
That's all you can amend a motion anyways, twice.
Yeah, that's the way your motion reads, is that taking out the last sentence in section 21, starting at notwithstanding as amended.
Well, no,
Twice.
see, that was amended and put it back, he put it back in.
Right.
They
So
put
does
it back
that take
in.
it out of your original motion?
It does,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So it goes back to the motion
So
that
your
has been
motion
amended.
is just going to say approve as presented and amended.
With the changes and amendments, yeah. Which I'm against. We've done all this hard work to turn it loose. I'm done.
Any other discussion?
It's my opinion, I'll be yours.
Back true. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. Motion passes. Any other business?
Yes. I do have one thing.
Sir.
2 weeks from tomorrow night, Read to Succeed, literacy matters, et cetera, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Mayor's been involved in this before. John Rogers spelled last year, big spelling bee at Patterson Park, and this year we will be honored. Ms. Ely is spelling this year, and she has been practicing because Ms. Ely practices. Okay, I think Ms. Shelton is spelling next year. I think you've agreed to that. Is that right? No, she is not. Anyway, it's 2 weeks from tomorrow night.
Mr. Black, I think, is volunteering.
I'm not sure about that. That's correct. But Mr. Jordan is not.
Yeah, Harvard, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mayor?
Will a copy of the updated resolution be presented to anyone before the full commission meets on the 18th?
I'm sure we can email it out.
Okay, cool.
I'm a little hesitant to announce this, but the United Way, Rutherford County, we're having a talent contest. I don't know whether it's a contest or just a show. Thursday night at Central Magnet School. There will be some interesting people participating. And some of them don't know exactly what they're doing, but it could be very humorous and
Entertaining.
entertaining. So we'd encourage anyone to come that wants to see that debacle it could be.
What time is that, Mayor?
I think it's at 7 o'clock.
What time are you going on now?
Well, no. Whenever I show up, they'll probably let me on, but we're going to have to leave the budget meeting to go do that.
Is there a charge?
Is this a charge?
There's a small charge. It's nominal, but I think you could afford it. $5, I think.
It's Thursday night at 7.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, election day, vote early, vote often.
Motion adjourned.